Let's analyze a topic that has generated very divided opinions in recent years: electric cars. Despite the popularity and growth that these vehicles have experienced, there are still many doubts and fears that lead some people to refuse to make the switch to electric mobility. Every day, advertising campaigns and strategies are launched to position electric cars as the best alternative for the future of mobility. But why is there still so many people who don't want them? To understand this situation, we'll dive into the main reasons why many people are still skeptical about electric cars. Some argue that these vehicles are expensive, that their batteries have issues, that the charging process is complicated, or that they simply don't have the same functionality as a conventional car. Throughout this video, we'll break down these points one by one, drawing on data and insights from both proponents and critics of electric cars. In the end, we'll analyze whether electric cars truly represent the perfect solution that marketing campaigns promise, or if, on the contrary, they still have a lot to improve to become a viable option for everyone. So, without further ado, let's get started with this detailed analysis. 1. The price. Are electric cars really affordable? One of the most important factors influencing the decision to buy an electric car is, without a doubt, the price, especially when compared to internal combustion vehicles. Electric cars usually have a much higher initial cost. This is mainly due to the cost of the technology, especially the lithium batteries used to store and supply energy. Although some countries offer government incentives to promote the purchase of electric vehicles, these do not always compensate for the price difference. Critics argue that while electric cars can save money in the long run on fuel and maintenance, the high initial cost is a deterrent for most people. This is especially true in emerging economies or in low and middle-income sectors of the population, where purchasing a car already represents a significant investment. Furthermore, the price of batteries has not yet dropped enough to make electric cars accessible to everyone. However, electric car advocates argue that the price of these batteries has been falling in recent years and are expected to continue to decline as technology advances and production efficiency improves. Furthermore, some studies indicate that electric vehicles pay for themselves after a few years thanks to their low operating costs. While this may be true, the question still remains whether people are willing to make such a high initial investment, especially if they don't have guarantees that they'll get that money back in the future. So, is price really an insurmountable barrier for electric cars? For some, yes. For others, it represents a long-term investment. However, as long as the price of electric cars doesn't come close to that of traditional vehicles, it's unlikely they'll become the preferred option for most consumers. 2 problems with the batteries: durability and replacement. Another hot topic when it comes to electric cars is the lifespan and replacement cost of their batteries. Lithium batteries, like the ones used in these vehicles, have a limited lifespan and can experience a reduction in their capacity over time. This means that after a certain number of years or miles driven, the car's range can certainly decrease significantly, which poses a problem for those who need to use their vehicle intensively. Also, the cost of replacing an electric car battery can be quite high. For example, in some models, the cost of a new battery can exceed $10,000, which is a significant expense even for those willing to invest in clean technology. Of course, electric car companies have tried to tackle this issue by offering warranties of up to 8 years or 100,000 kilometers on the batteries, but there's still the fear that once the warranty expires, the cost of maintaining the vehicle will be too high. Despite these drawbacks, it's important to mention that battery technology has advanced rapidly in recent years. Some brands are working on developing solid-state batteries, which promise to be more durable, safe, and efficient. However, these technologies are still in the development phase and aren't expected to hit the mass market in the short term. In the meantime, concerns about battery durability remain one of the main reasons why many people are not convinced to buy an electric car. 3. The infrastructure. Charging infrastructure. An insurmountable challenge. One of the most common complaints among those who have considered buying an electric car is the lack of charging infrastructure. Although some cities are seeing more charging stations, we are still far from having a network of chargers comparable to gas stations. This problem is especially serious in rural areas or far from major urban centers, where it's practically impossible to find a place to charge an electric car. In addition, charging time is another factor that concerns many consumers. While filling the tank of an internal combustion vehicle may take just a few minutes, charging the battery of an electric car can take several hours, especially if using a conventional electrical outlet. Even though there are fast chargers that can reduce charging time to under an hour, they are still scarce and usually located in specific places that aren't always accessible to everyone. For those who live in apartments or do not have access to private parking, home charging also presents a challenge. In many apartment buildings, there isn't the necessary infrastructure to install chargers, which greatly limits the feasibility of owning an electric car. Although some countries are starting to implement laws that require new constructions to include facilities for charging electric vehicles, these changes can take years to take effect and may not cover the needs of all drivers. Despite these hurdles, electric car advocates argue that charging infrastructure is constantly expanding, and that, over time, it will become as common as gas stations. However, the lack of infrastructure remains a legitimate concern that keeps many people from choosing an electric car. Range and range anxiety. Another recurring topic in discussions about electric cars is battery range and what's known as range anxiety. Although newer models have significantly improved in terms of range, many electric cars still have limited range compared to gasoline vehicles. This can be a problem for those who need to travel long distances without interruptions, as electric cars require long charging times to recharge their battery. Range anxiety refers to the constant worry of running out of battery before reaching a charging station. For those who live in areas where charging stations are scarce, this anxiety can be a real concern, and it's a deciding factor when choosing whether or not to go for an electric car. Even though there are apps and services that help plan routes to minimize this issue, the worry still lingers. Some experts suggest that as technology advances and batteries become capable of storing more energy, the range of electric cars will improve and range anxiety will decrease. However, until that happens, limited range will continue to be one of the reasons why many consumers prefer gasoline cars. 5. Myths and realities. Environmental impact and maintenance. Finally, it's important to analyze one of the most debated topics about electric cars: their environmental impact. Although these vehicles do not emit polluting gases while driving, some studies suggest that the production of lithium batteries has a high environmental impact due to the extraction of materials such as lithium and cobalt. Furthermore, if the electricity used to charge electric cars comes from non-renewable sources, such as coal, the environmental impact is significantly reduced. On the other hand, maintaining an electric car is generally simpler and cheaper than that of an internal combustion vehicle, since they lack many moving parts and don't require oil changes. However, when a problem arises with the battery or the electrical system, repairs can be costly and require specialized technicians. In conclusion, electric cars represent a promising option for the future of mobility, but they still face several challenges that have prevented their mass adoption. From the high upfront cost and infrastructure issues to battery durability and environmental concerns, it's clear that there are valid reasons why some people still prefer gasoline vehicles. However, as technology advances and government policies support the development of the necessary infrastructure, it's possible that electric cars will become an increasingly accessible and viable option.